So good evening, everybody. I'm Susan M. Hart-Servideo from the Rutgers Cooperative Extension in Ocean County. And tonight, Patty Dixon, our other horticulturist in the office, is with us. And Anne Huron and her husband, Bob, are here as well. And Anne is one of our Rutgers Master Gardeners in Ocean County. And Anne just loves to present. And I've seen this one before a few years ago, and I really it's just amazing what you can do with creativity and a nice getaway in the garden for if you have some space. So, Anne, I'm going to keep it simple. Anybody, if you'd like to chat, the chat box is open tonight instead of the Q&A. So please put any comments in there, and it will go to, should go to everyone. So, all right, and Anne, I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Sounds good. And as you get questions and comments, let me know what they are, because I'm seeing nothing but full screen at the moment.
Yes, sorry. Yes, you would.
So just to let you know what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to go fairly quickly through some of these because we've got a lot of slides. I'm the garden and the railroad is sitting next to me. This is my husband, Bob Mealy. Hello. And we did this together. We built 2 garden railroads, and I'm going to share with you what we did, how we did it, so you can learn from it. So what's a garden railroad? It's really a model railway system set up outdoors in a garden. Pre-World War I, aristocratic British gardeners did these. Most were custom made by Bassett Locke, and they really weren't toys. Smaller models to accommodate the smaller space of the newer British houses eventually took place. It was still a hobby that only the financially successful could afford. It was very expensive to do this. Models for discerning adults rather than children's toys. And I can tell you, when we built these railroads, the people that had the greatest interest in them were all the men in both neighborhoods. Every minute spent playing with Hornby trains was the idea of toy train sets for middle-class children. You all have heard of other types of trains, but this is where it started. Here are some examples of garden railroads taken from the internet. And I will tell you, and you'll see a notation of this at the end, there's actually a garden railroad magazine. There are a couple of them. And there are also every year garden railroad conventions around the country where you get the opportunity to visit people's railroads they've built all over the country. It's quite fascinating. People build them on hillsides, and you can see, for those of us who are gardeners, all the opportunity for landscaping. They build them with all kinds of very interesting structures and stone. Europeans are really big on garden railroads. It's also taken over here as well. And obviously, if you're in a warmer climate, you can do this longer. People get very creative with bridges and ponds and figures and buildings, many of which are scratch built. You can do them on flat ground, on hilly ground. You can set it up, like this is sort of set up as a vegetable bed, except that the garden railroad bed, raised beds. This one got very creative and pretty sizable, where they can walk around it, have different venues around it. This is a bridge that's been built for the train to go over. Many of you may have been to the New York Botanical Gardens in the wintertime, Christmas, January type season, where you will see the trains on display and all of the buildings that are built with individual outdoor material. So leaves and twigs and sticks. It's quite impressive. Morris Arboretum also has one. Some people do it on smaller scale, but you can get very creative and you can get very sizable, and you can run multiple trains at the same time. So the introduction of gauge and scale to model railroading, there are over 60 gauge scale standards, going from tiny Z all the way up to large scale. Most of what we've used is G scale, which is sort of the size of a big boxcar. Detail on larger G-scale model engines and railroads you can see here, so you get an idea of the size. At one point in time, our two-car garage was 1/4 full, floor to ceiling, with G-scale models. Part of the reason people went to G-scale model trains is they're easier to handle and place on tracks. They're immune to slight track imperfections. They're very sturdy constructions. And you'll find people who put the train track around their Christmas trees or in their family rooms at holiday time and often run G-scale trains. You can also use them outdoors. They're meant to run inside and out. They're very forgiving of climate. Wheels are large, made of stainless steel or high-grade brass. You can see the one here with the snowplow on the front of it. Outdoor model railroad tracks incorporate garden features. Rail and tie height, low growth does not impede the train operation. Plants can be manicured into a miniature world of the railroad. The track is impervious to rust and corrosion, and there are a variety of options to install tracks. So, selecting track. The track that comes with the Bachmann train set is not designed to be used outside, but Lionel large-scale brass track will break down quickly for outdoor usage. You'll hear names like Bachmann, Lionel, Aristocrat, LGB. These are all different train companies that build the track as well as some of the actual train engines and cars. We recommend, through process of elimination, that you keep it simple. Select a quality G-gauge track from one source that's either brass or stainless steel. We use brass in the LGB display we had in Stillman, which was the one you weren't looking at that one. I'll show you that in a minute. And we used Aristocrat in Manahawkin, which is the one you were looking at. They were both very sturdy train track. You want to talk about this?
But no, it's like everything. There's a variety of curves and straight track comes in 6-foot lengths, 4-foot lengths, 2-foot lengths. There's switch tracks, whatever you can imagine they make, and most of them are compatible. You could usually mix like an LGB track with an Aristocrat track, because they're made about the same. They're a solid brass track, and they'll couple together. The most important thing when you're doing it is planning the space and really trying to keep the track level. Because if you notice, just like a real train, they really can't negotiate steep inclines. So it's very important to kind of keep that part of your garden as level as you can. And the track is usually, some people put it right on the ground if they have a good solid base and level it out. Sometimes a crushed stone or some other aggregate. And in my cases, I did it with concrete. I used patio block mixed with cement and concrete to build level road bed, and it's laid the track on top of that.
And we'll show you some of that. A few longer pieces are better than many short ones. It's just easier to manage and maintain and not worry about cracks and connections. This is what Bob was talking about. The road bed and the track is the foundation of the layout, and you need a solid, level road bed with good quality track. He's not planning to build another one of these because he was on his hands and knees a lot doing this.
This is 27 bags of concrete and a pallet and a half of cement block or patio block, and the one in Skillman was something like 85 bags of concrete. So you're on your knees a lot, digging and chopping, and it's that's a long time ago.
Well, I'm going to get into some more of that as well. So here are some of the manufacturers. I mentioned a few of them: LGB, Aristocrat, Bachmann. These are all different manufacturers of G-gauge trains, tracks, and accessories. This becomes as obsessive a hobby as dollhouses do. And oh yeah, he built one of those too. So here's some examples of road bed using crushed stone to support the track. Fairly simple, not as easily used in our climate, but people do them, and we'll show you what Bob did. Here's road bed using PVC pipe, cement block, and wood. You can go a long ways in being very creative with this and a lot of work. Here's some examples of layout. Here's the New York Botanical Annual Garden Railroad exhibit on the top.
Let's say the guy that does
He does Morris Arboretum as well.
Morris, where
Right.
this came from.
Yeah. So, and then a lot of conventions do temporary exhibits like this one on the bottom. They just lay out all the track, put all this stuff down. People can come and watch it and watch the trains. We had two railroads, one in Manahawkin, New Jersey with plantings, structures, and trains, and one in Skillman, New Jersey with trains, plantings, and a pond with fountain. So when we moved to our house in Skillman, which was in a new development in the Cherry Valley development, we called a landscaper in and said to them we wanted to take the original backyard berm, have a wall built as flat as a pool table. They thought we were out of our mind. When Bob first laid this out, he did a figure 8, and our next door neighbor behind us had a sister who was a pilot, and she flew over the space one time and wondered what in heaven's name her brother's neighbor was doing. So we had this excavated and a wall constructed. The finished retaining wall was approximately 3.5 feet high, and as you can see, flat as a pool table. And that's what we built the train on. So here are some photos of the Garden Railroad in Skillman. They're a little grainy because we took a picture of a picture.
Oh, that was actually video.
Oh, it was video,
Yeah, it was
okay.
some video, yeah.
You can see the bridge going over the pond. Yes,
Yeah, and even that incline was a little too steep for most of the train, where I put that bridge over the pond.
and everything you see here, Bob or I put in. So that was the golf course that was behind us. We were on the 6th fairway. And so you got a real vista of greenery from the railroad. And when we had the wall put in, it gave us a great spot to put various shrubbery. Those were a type of phlox that were beautiful in various types of the year. I will tell you, when you do this, there's maintenance. You have to weed, you have to trim, you may have to move things. We also had steam engines here.
That's
that we
live
used.
steam.
That's live steam that you're seeing right there. Now, here's the next one. This was our Manahawkin backyard. On the left is what it looked like before we laid the trains out, and on the right is what ended up happening. Now, I should say what we ended up doing and why this looks so different is we were able to build out 2 feet with a sand wall for a new bulkhead. And that actual 2 feet gave us the space for the walkway that's on the water side around the trains, which came in very handy. And then this was planted up to the walkway. You can talk about this and what you did.
Oh, that was a cement block. I just figured the best way to level it out, because it's all very sandy here. So you really don't have a lot of substantial soil underneath it. So I figured what I had to do is basically build, like, bridges and crowns in your mouth with a cement block, put them all together and level it out as I went. And then as a company, I think they're called Split Jaw now. It's part of Aristocraft. And you could, if you look at the top on the bottom 2 images, they're plastic or like a amalgamine substance that are actually made to match the LGB track. Whatever the radius of the curve is, you could buy the equivalent substrate for it. And what I did, I put that on top of the concrete, so that gave me an easy way to attach the track to something that would stay there rather than trying to attach it to the concrete. So those were on those half-inch PVC pipes got sunk into the ground between the concrete blocks, and that held the substrate in place so I could level it all out. And then I just kind of anchored it there, and that gave me a good level spot to actually adhere the track to something.
So we can walk around it and we could walk through it and the dogs could go all over it without any of it shifting. And we had 3 dogs at the time, and trust me, they were all over it. Now this is installing the track. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so basically, this is the stainless steel track, and the reason I went with the stainless steel, Aristocraft made it, it was because it had salt water. I felt a little more confident that it wasn't going to pit and rust as much as brass would tend to tarnish, and it typically doesn't even affect the operation of the trains. But I just thought that the stainless steel would stand up better, and as you can see, it just conforms to the plastic that was under it. All the curves, I just bought the same amount of and types of curves and straight amount of straight track I needed to match the design.
Then we had some hardscaping and some scale structures put in.
Yeah, in the winter I built little houses and stuff. There were kits that a million companies put out, for G scale.
And then this was the initial test run of the train.
Yeah, long before the planting. Yeah.
So we had to do that before we did all the plantings. The plantings on the outside edge were already there. And then I finally got to do my thing. And as you can see, all the plants we've got there and the dog helping us.
And it's a part I know nothing about. I don't know a petunia from a brick, so.
So here are some photos of that railroad in Manahawkin, which I don't think is any longer. I think it is gone now.
I think they ripped it out. Yeah.
Now, since most of you are gardeners, you can see why there needs to be a lot of trimming and changing and placing of things as they grow. So I was out there all season long trimming things. What we found happened when we sold this property is the people who bought it really let it go, and things took over and buildings collapsed. I haven't been there lately, but I'm guessing it's probably all gone by now.
A lot of these plantings you can find in Garden Railroad magazines. There is a magazine called Garden Railroad. And they tend to have people that'll advertise in there that specialize in miniatures and plants that don't grow quickly and stuff like that.
Talk about the people.
There's my people on the rock there, yeah, mountain climbers. Or people on the station. Little by little, it was starting to come, fall into place. But the winter always did a job on it. So, once you got through the winter, by the time March or April came, boy, you were out there, you had a few weeks of work just to glue some of the plastic back together on the buildings and put everything back where it belonged, because the frost action and everything else do a job on it. Nothing but the train to the track stuff.
We had a variety of different trains we could use on this, and Bob would switch them out all the time. He even built, and I don't know that we have a picture of it, a water feature that was fake, but it looks like water.
Well, the other one had a real pond with koi in it. The one at
Right.
Yeah.
So there are lots of plants that are grown for garden railroads. You want inexpensive, low maintenance plants. And there's a guy by the name of Paul Race who's got a book called Family Garden Trains. You can find nurseries. If you Google this and want to get into it, you can Google garden railroad or fairy garden and get small things. You basically want a lot of low growing ground covers, dwarf trees and shrubs, some bulbs, which I'd put in, perennials, obviously, so they come back every year, and annuals to fill in. And it's really sort of fun to run around trying to find all of this. Thank God for the internet, because we're now able to find a lot more quickly that can come to your doorstep and not necessarily run around the neighborhood. Bob mentioned these. There's Garden Railways magazine, and they're on YouTube now. You can look at them online. They talk to you about how to build a garden railroad. They talk to you about the variety of garden railroads. They give you videos on projects. They build G-scale railway. It's really an easy way to learn how to do this. And it's amazing to me how creative people are with this.
Yeah, in a warmer, drier climate, the railroads get enormous. You got to Arizona and New Mexico, people that have acres just run these things all over, as far as you can imagine. And there's also, believe it or not, there's quite a few in Germany, very popular. That's why you see them in the winter running the snow plows and everything. They'll leave them out there all year round.
Few retailers for gauge trains, tracks, and accessories. Are all of these still in existence? They may not be.
I don't know. I've been under the loop so long. I don't know who's still, I think, well, I think Train World is. I don't know about the rest of it. They may be. I don't know. No, it'll be new. Charles Rowe, I think, still exists. But most of them, they're online. Most of them are, internet, present.
I will tell you, it's a hobby you can get into that can be all consuming, but it's a lot of fun. And when we moved where we are now, and we're in the Greenbrier Oceaneer Development in Waretown, before we did our wall building and planting, I said to Bob, do you want to do another railroad? And we're on a slope. And he said, boy, I don't know. I said, well, the time is now, because I'm going to get somebody in here to build walls and concrete. And you let me know if they have to be level or they can angle down the hill. And he opted to angle them down the hill. So we're not going to be building another one. Questions? I wanted to leave lots of time. We can go back and see the running trains again if you wish. I can go over any more details.
Sorry, I was looking up something online for, I was going to put the Morris Arboretum website. I just didn't get that far. Anne had a question about what can be left outside in the winter.
We left all of it outside in the winter.
Even the trains, or just...
We could, yes.
But yeah, I bring them in occasionally to change them out, but they're all impervious to weather. The only thing I used to take in and out was the power supply at random, because I had a little spot where I plug it in on our deck, and just plug it into a couple of wires and reach the track. And other than that, I had that thing on a little roll around cart, and I would roll it right back into the garage when I wasn't using it.
Okay. And then, yeah, that's one thing I wasn't sure, like, in order to run it, sorry, this wasn't on there. This was my question. But when you have the transformers and stuff like that, how did you run? Is it just a extension cord and just rugging it?
Yeah, the simplest thing is direct lines to the tracks. These two tracks, the two loops you saw, were independent, so I could isolate them. And the power pack, had two sides to it, one for one track, one for the other. Or you get two power packs, and they run approximately on about 20 volts, 17 to 20 volts DC. So it's not like a high voltage kind of a situation. And I had an electrician put an outlet by one of the railings on our deck, and I would just roll the power pack out there and had the wires from the track come up to that railing. I would just plug it in and turn them on, and that was it.
Oh,
But
that's
that was
easy.
the only thing I did was bring that in and out when I wanted to run them. Other than that, the
Okay.
train stayed outside. Nothing bothered them really.
Okay. Anne also had another question. She said, I have heard about trains that kids can ride. What do you think?
That's a different world.
That's more like Northlands in Flemington, if you've ever been there. It has both an indoor and an outdoor train. And they have cars there that you can ride them, and you can ride them through what they've designed outdoors. The inside ones you can't ride. As Bob said to me, that's a whole nother thing. That's not something we would be doing. We had a friend that used to do big locomotives that he rode all the time, Carl.
Oh yeah, the hobbyists that build them, and they actually truck them to locations where they have, railroads, and they take them off and build. Some guys build locomotives, some guys build box cars, passenger cars, and they're big. Some of them are 1-inch scale, half-inch scale, and that's a whole different world. That's an entirely different kind of thing, hobby.
Now, I will also tell you that Bob built an N-scale coffee table with a train in it that's about the size of your finger. And we have
I love
that
it.
in the house as well. So he went from large to very small.
Yeah, I like and my parents and my father and brothers are big trainers, but inside. But I'm getting a couple of questions. If you guys do have questions, please put them. You can put them in and send it to everyone. But Jay asked, do you garage the trains when not in use? You pretty much said you.
The ones who weren't running, I had spots for in the garage or wherever I put them. I'd shelved, I just take them out of service, so to speak. And because they're very easy to take on and off the track. They're not like N scale where you have to flush with them and get them on perfectly. These things are very forgiving in that they're so large that it's not a big deal to take 4 or 5 of them off the track and replace them.
Okay. Another good question from Tom, and he said, where are you getting spare parts for the engines? Aristocraft and Bachmann have discontinued many of their G scale models.
That's a good question because I never really had to do any repairs on them. I never ran them to the degree that the people who would probably know are the fellows talking with out in the garden.
Oh, Morris Arboretum
And Morris Arboretum, we were out there a few months ago, and there was a fellow there who was a maintenance guy, and he had a bunch of locomotives, he had things all over the place, and they constantly, we change motors and I guess wheels and things that would tend to wear bearings. I didn't ask them where we get the parts from, but apparently they can source them because those trains run constantly, and they're running a lot of trains. So I would assume they're the ones who probably could tell you, where you can source replacement parts. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of it on eBay. If you start hunting around, and even some of these retailers, like maybe Train World or World of Trains or Charles Rowe, they probably have sources for it. And even the ones who went out of business, and LGP kind of went under, but then they started building them again in China, and now they're available still under the LGB name. But I don't know if they're exactly the same or they if they redesigned them. And I think Arista, I'm not sure about Arista if they're still out there because I haven't been following it lately for about 10 years now.
Right. Yeah, so there was sorry, there was a question that I was starting. Oh, yeah, you were saying about replacing. You didn't have to worry too much about flooding where you were in the Manahawk and on the water.
Yeah, we never well, even during Sandy, we didn't have water even in our garage. We was a little high enough, so we were just lucky enough to miss it.
Okay.
But even if they're so well sealed up, especially the LGB products. The Arista wasn't quite as sealed as the LGB, but the LGB was impervious to everything.
Okay. All right. Excellent. There's Christina. Oh, in the chat, just so everybody knows, if you follow you can slide up. I think I've sent it to everyone. There is the link for the New Jersey Botanic Gardens. There is the link also Patty put on for the Morris Arboretum. So if you have any questions and you might want to, you can try to contact them through email as well. And there's also the link for the Garden Railways magazine that's on there as well. I still get a couple of questions. They're all coming to me. Sorry, Patty. It's this is a beautiful, Christina, this is a beautiful presentation. The only time she's seen a garden railroad set up was at the New Jersey Amateur Christmas Train Show 2 years ago. So she was tickled that you guys were doing this. Both the New York Botanic Gardens actually starts this weekend. And Morris Arboretum said November 26th. So, if you guys want to get it, you want to start doing that. Jay had get tickets. I'm sorry. Jay had another question. Did you have lights in the cars, engine, and buildings for running after sundown?
No, I mean it's the passenger cars did and the locomotives did, but I never lit the buildings.
We had outdoor low voltage. Well, actually, they weren't low voltage lighting. We had outdoor lanterns around the property, so it did illuminate some of them. We didn't really need to put them into the trains.
Okay. Okay. Nancy got some great questions. Anne is asking, oops, it just went away. What would it cost to set up a simple garden railway, not including plants? An approximation.
Boy, I don't know anymore. Because I don't know what's available. LGB at one time used to have this really simple, basic, trained kits, not kits, sets that they sold that were I'm going back 15, 20 years ago. They were probably $400 or $500 for a locomotive and 4 cars or something like that. People with a loop of track that people would put around a Christmas tree. And all of this stuff ran outdoors anyway. I mean, if you even picked it up used and people were selling them on eBay, I'm sure they're still available. A lot of these things because as I said, they're very hard to damage. They're very substantial, especially the LGB stuff. The only thing really that you have to concern yourself with is if you start to mix and match them. Like if you're gonna get Aristocraft or cars and LGB cars, and they're all G scale. But what happens is most of the LGB stuff has European couplers on them. And I converted them all to American knuckle couplers because LGB sold kits to retrofit their cars. And those knuckle couplers worked pretty well with the Arista cars, which all came with knuckle couplers on them. So that was the only kind of things you had to concern yourself with sometimes. That's why it was good to stay with one manufacturer. But I used to like some things LGB really was geared for the European market. And a lot of it was European style locomotives, European style cars. The trains, they were different. The trucks on them were different, where the wheels are. And there were times where I liked some of the American stuff. And so what happened is, and LGB really wasn't quite scaled for American size. They were all G scale as far as track was concerned. So they all run on the same track. But they weren't really a scale model. European, they were a little closer, but not to the American stuff. The Arista stuff was definitely scaled more American size. So look at like Santa Fe that was running before the movie, and even at Mogul, that was an old American style locomotive, and this scaled about right for the American stuff. The Europeans tended to scale the American cars a little too short. So it was kind of like the people who when I was a kid, I had a lot of Lionel stuff, and Lionel was definitely not a scale modelist thing. It was a toy. The scale modelists wanted an HO, or they wanted to build their own, or whatever. Or there were a couple of people that actually worked in scale in O gauge, which is what Lionel was. But Lionel never really built anything to scale because they look at the size of their wheels and the trucks on them. They were too big for the car, and the people that got particular. I didn't care. I treated the things as toys. I just wanted to run around in the garden with the plant, so I wasn't that particular. But when you get involved with these railroad people, it can drive you nuts after a while. So, but that's the only thing I had to be a little careful of was the couplers between the manufacturers that they would make. But other than that, everything else just plopped on the tracks and ran. They all ran on the same voltage. They all, never a problem.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, because like I said, my family with Lionels everywhere, and they still have them. It's crazy. But Mark had a question in here. Do you use a normal track block to clean the track or a chemical compound?
Nothing.
Okay. So
the tracks, I don't think, as I said, the brass would tend to tarnish a little bit, but the pickups on locomotives and everything are so large, and as far as surface area, and I never saw any of the tarnish even interfere with them with the running. Occasionally, if you got if you're working on it, you get some dirt on the track with some tar or some whatever on your feet. I can just clean it off with some whatever acetone. But as far as actually cleaning the track, the brass almost looked better as it got tarnished because it would darken it a little bit.
Didn't look so shiny, spanking new. Mark also put Greenberg Train Show is at the Greenberg Train Show is at the New Jersey Expo Center in Edison from 11:27 to 11:28, and it has a lot of LGB
Oh, yeah.
dealers.
Yes,
Yeah, we used to go
buy
there
there.
every year. We used to stop there. And yeah, there are quite a few LGBT or G-scale people there.
I will
Excellent.
warn all of you, it's very addicting, both from the standpoint of buying cars and buying plants. And every season you go and look at it and say, ooh, couldn't we add this to it or change that? It's probably like any other hobby. But the nice thing about this is it literally scales depending on where you are. And the reason I wanted to show you the two different railroads is you can see the difference in size in the amount of land we had in space up in Skillman versus the smaller space we had in Manahawkin.
Well, I was gonna say, you guys are made in heaven. He's got the train hobby and you've got the plant hobby, so you guys are great. And it sounds wonderful, even if it's addictive. But as you get into anything, we all that are gardeners know it's definitely addicting.
Yeah.
We have to go to Planners Anonymous. So,
I'm like,
Wait,
ooh,
Susie,
all
'cause
those
there were-
miniature little plants. It's so fun.
yeah,
Well,
that
I
would
change things different seasons. I mean, I'd say, okay, it's fall. I must need to put bulbs somewhere. So I'd take pictures of this over the year and say, all right, this corner could use some bulbs this year. And so I'd go out and add some. Did they need it? Probably not, but it was something else for me to do.
but that's fun. That's yeah. I can't imagine. I could try that, but my other hobbies are getting in the way.
Yeah,
Time is the issue.
Yeah, I know. Let me tell you, I've had all of them. I'm the king of
Yeah.
hobbies. You know, they always say that the guy with the most toys wins when you die. I won that thing a long time ago. I've been through 20 boats in 40 years, so that should tell you something.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And
I
the
would
railroad thing reached a crazy level in Skillman because I bought 5 live steam locomotives. And they ran on basically it's camping fuel. It's butane propane mix of fuel and water, and you actually fire them up and run them as a steam locomotive, a live steam. And that took on a whole nother dimension. And then I found out there were people that actually scratch and build them. So there's no end to it, you know.
It's just like anything, you get passionate about it, you got to take it to the next level.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, I don't know, we still have everybody on, so I don't know if anybody has any other questions or any other comments. I'd love to get to see either the Morris Arboretum or I haven't been able to get to the train show. Longwood Gardens, they did have a train set up, but I don't know if they still do, but they had it year round as they started at holiday and then they had it year round a couple of years ago, but I don't know if it's still up and
Morris is year round.
Yeah.
At least when
We were there this summer. It's got its own special area that it's set
Yeah,
aside.
that one's really extensive. That's really nice. They did a nice job.
so it's just, just like everything. If my father was still around, I would definitely, I could talk him into this one. I could do the plant and he could do the other.
As long as he has good knees.
Oh, and Steve just mentions Longwood Trains has their train set up now. So it is
Oh,
still
great.
set up. So yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to combine passion and just having fun. I could watch that stuff all day. But your scales, it was like perfect. You had everything looked so real with the buildings and the people and even the cars. I remember, the cars were never that would my brothers would bring their hot rods in and stuff like that. I'm like, no, they don't belong.
Well, as I said, what happened as we started building both of these, it was not so much the kids that came running over immediately. It was the men who remembered doing this growing up as kids, and they wanted to get in the middle of all of it. The Manahawkin one was on a lagoon, and we'd have people coming up in their boats and sort of pausing in front of it saying, what are you doing? And then when he'd tell me, they'd say, can we come over and visit? Where is this? So we'd have 5 or 6 guys in the yard looking at all the trains and fooling around with the trains.
Well, but it's hey, there you go. There's a new men's club or ladies and men's club for that matter, all inclusive. But Carl just mentioned there's a breakfast with trains in the Brandywine at the Brandywine Museum.
Oh, that would
So
be
that's
fun.
there's a link in the chat for there as well. So it's just so much fun to see what you could do. You don't really again, until you see it, it's amazing. Any other questions? Any other comments? Anybody have that's still on? I'm trying to see if I missed any questions, but no, I don't see any others popping up right now.
Well,
So-
Susan knows where to find me, so if any of them come about and you
Yeah.
want to learn more about it, call
Okay.
me and then I'll tell you to talk to Bob.
Okay. Anne, who was asking quite a few questions, she said, thank you so much. Needless to say, it's a dream of hers. So she's looking forward to. So yes, if you guys have any questions, you can always answer back on, you'll get we have a little survey that comes on after our program is finished, and you can send an email out to the email address that'll come through. You'll see that come through at the end. So if you have questions for going forward, please let us know. And if we can pass that over information, Patty, we might have to make a little brochure of little plants for little places.
Well, you know, I mentioned in the fairy
Yeah.
gardens, a lot of the stuff you do in the fairy gardens now
Yeah.
apply really well to this.
Yes,
Yep. Yep.
I forgot about that. And then if
I
you,
love all those tiny little evergreens.
yeah. And then if you have children that really like the Legos, maybe you could do Lego sets. They can make the Lego houses for you.
That worked well with it.
So you get everybody together there. So,
Yeah.
but so I really want to thank you guys. Thank you, Bob, for joining us as well tonight.
Yeah.
And Anne,
You're welcome.
very much. Thank you so much. And again, if anybody has
Thank you.
questions, please send them our way. We will be continuing our talks again in January. We're still working on our lineup, so we're hoping to really get some good ideas. And last question came up from Coral. If it's indoors, maybe you can blend it with bonsai. So if anybody that does bonsai, if you wanted to do an indoor track, you could maybe
Or little
Try that
growing
hobby.
bulbs, or yeah, there's any number of things you could do indoors. I've never
Yeah.
done one indoors where I've had plants. They've usually gone around the Christmas tree or running around the family room, but
Plastic.
plastic. Well, plastic plants and plastic, yeah, plastic plants. No, you're on the wrong show here.
They don't grow away. You don't
Well,
have
you
to feed
mentioned
them. They
fairy
don't grow
gardens.
away. They don't die. You're good.
the fairy gardens are good. I mean, everything's so creative.
Well, no, like you know, the plants that they sell for the fairy
You
gardens.
can
So
use them
now
in
I'm
the
picturing
railroads.
inside,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
Picture Jean. Jean would do this indoor with houseplants, fairy plant houseplants. I could see it.
I think we need to get Jean back on. Jean's Jean's one of our
Yes,
other
Gene
master
Kramer would
gardeners.
love this. He would be
Yes.
very good with this.
Be a great
Yeah.
indoor
Yep.
or greenhouse situation too in a garden
Right.
center. I'm sure there's been a
Yeah.
few that have tried that as well. But during the holidays, I know a couple places that do it for the holiday here and there. But yeah, but thank you guys so much for coming on. And I'm looking to make sure there's no other last things that are popping up. And I will send out the recording. We did record tonight, so we will send out the recording with the links when it comes up. When we get it all up and running. And thank you guys so much. If there's any questions, I keep saying that. If there's any questions, please send them on. But if, I'd love to see the ideas of what you guys do come up with if anybody does have. So send pictures if you guys do have setting up or even around the holiday tree. You can send it around the menorah. That's all good too. We'll keep everybody chatting and training through the season this year.
And I will also say to all of you, if you haven't got floor space, think above your head, because a lot of people run these tracks near the ceiling height and run the
Yep.
trains around rooms that way too. You can get very creative with
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Keep the space so that you can still be functional for
Right.
every day.
Right.
So, but all right. Well, thank you again, guys.
Thank you very much.
You're very
You're
welcome.
welcome.
Yes. All right. And we'll be, yep. Mark is saying thank you for the presentation. So we'll definitely get you the feedback, and any questions will come your way.
Appreciate it. Thanks so
All right.
much.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you.